Next up, taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen of the Jeep Compass. So this is going to be a full walkthrough, going through all of the different buttons, sticks, and things like that. So starting off, might have a heated steering wheel, might not, just depending on which trim level of the vehicle you've gone for. If you do have a heated steering wheel, we've got a button right on the inside of the media screen there. So we can see there, we've got all of our different climate control settings. We've got our heated steering wheel button that we can toggle on or off there as well, which is fantastic. But heated all the way around, and the wheel itself feels great. We've got all of these nice metallic highlights throughout. Now one thing, steering wheel is going to be a manual telescoping. So just by our left knee there, we've got a little release, move it in, out, up and down as necessary. And then click it, lock it back into place. But let's go through all the different buttons and sticks and things like that. Starting off, stick on the left-hand side, we can flash our high beams out, use our turn signals, etc. On the right-hand side, we also do have our controls for our front as well as for our rear windshield wipers. So we can easily adjust there, pull in towards us to get that front windshield wiper fluid going, and then we're going to push away in order to get our rear windshield wiper fluid going. So very straightforward. Along the left-hand side, that's going to let us control what's going on with the media, with the cluster screen, while as the right-hand side is going to let us figure out what's going on with our cruise control. So the buttons that you're going to see here are going to depend on the packages you have, because if you don't have the adaptive cruise, this will just be your regular cruise control instead. But the adaptive is great, because all we do is we just turn it on there. You can see our adaptive cruise control is ready, and then we can either increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time once we get to our cruising speed, and then go up and down. Toggle the system on off as necessary. This is a distance indicator. So how close? You can see it kind of appearing on a few different screens there. So along the very bottom right side, and then when we go full screen, we can also kind of see it there too before it just kind of hides away again. So it is nice that we've got that as an option. But one cool thing is that we can also press the OK button here in order to go to a different view instead. So we've got some different options there. But you can see there, our cruise system works the same way. It's just that it's going to look slightly different when we're in the digital versus, well, I guess fully digital regardless, but if we want that traditional analog look instead. We'll get to how that works in a sec, but basics of our cruise control system there, so we can either figure out how close or far we're going to be away from the vehicle that's in front of us. We've got our highway drive assist too. And what that's going to do is, as long as it recognizes the lane markings, it's going to keep us nice and balanced in our lane as we go. So it's not fully self-driving, but it's pretty dang close all at the same time. We can also hit resume. So very straightforward to use, but if you want to walk through on how to actually use the adaptive cruise system, check down in the description below. I've put together a comprehensive video there. So really straightforward there. Along the left-hand side is going to be for a few things. So first one there is going to be the either answer or hang up on a phone call. We can also press this button if we want to get our Jeep's assistant listening. So our Uconnect system, we can do things like navigate using our voice. We can change songs, radio stations, and so many other things. But if we push that button, it's cool because it gives us a list of everything, for the most part, that we're able to do inside of this vehicle. Like we can change the climate, media, and a few other things on top of that, which is fantastic. I love it. Now, we also can, I did mention, answer or hang up on a phone call. This button is an interesting one too, because if we're hooked up through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, we can also do a longer press and hold if we want to activate our Google or our Siri Assistant. Now the buttons here are going to let us figure out what's going on with that cluster screen as well. So we've got a series of options available. We can change it out for this view. Pressing and holding OK gets us out to more of like a digital view instead. So as we give it a little bit of gas there, we can also press OK to change between miles and kilometers per hour too, which is very simple. And then if we wanted to, we push this button in order to switch out to a different style view again. So quite a few different views that are available, and we can kind of jump up and down between different options there. So you can see trip A/B counter. We've got our current range. We've got all of our different temperatures and things like that, which is kind of neat. Moving to the side, we also do have what's going on with our cruise control, current speed. Up and down here is going to do nothing because this is for our radio. So we can't do anything there. We actually have to adjust what station we're using. Look at this. So along the left side, we've got a series of different buttons. We've got some on the right side too. But buttons along the left-hand side let us change between what's going on with our station. So we can push up in order to seek between different stations. We can do a press and hold to seek out that way too. Or we can press this way if we want to change between our active presets. So it's a really, really useful setting. So a little button there is for our presets. Up and down is essentially going to let us seek out to different stations. And then we go the opposite side. And then on this side, we've got a few other buttons here. This one is going to be for our volume, so volume up and down.
That was too much longer. He said he wanted it.
So we can easily go up and down with our volume there. And then we can push this button if we want to change out between all of our different sources. Really useful, but I love that Jeep vehicles have that. You're going to find that in Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep vehicles, but it's brilliant. Pressing this button again brings us back to this like multi-stage view. We can hop inside and see what's going on. So we're in auto mode right now. But as we shift between different modes, so we've got different modes that are kind of popping up and down there. And let's drop back down to our auto mode. So auto mode honestly is where you're going to want to stay most of the time. But as you can see there, it's going to automatically adapt to road conditions versus locking it out into one of these other modes instead. And then we simply just push there to get back to this main screen again. And then we can go up and down between different subscreens. So what I'm going to do is switch back to the analog view for a second here. You can realistically get to any of these options, whether we're in the analog versus the digital there, but it is so neat that we've got that as an option. So we can kind of go left and right in between these screens to get to different options there as well. Moving down, you can see that we're going up and down between other screens. So all I'm going to do is use the directional pad here. So I'm going to zoom you in so you can see exactly what's going on as we go. So let's focus you in. There we go. So we've got our range there, so what's going on. Moving down, we've also got our trip information with 2 individual counters. So you can see along the very bottom there, we've got little sub-screens. And that's pretty much the same way across the board. So we've got our vehicle info. We've also got what's going on with our coolant, temp, transmission temperature, and a number of other things. So our essential gauge summary. We've got what's going on with our current tire pressure. We've also got our start-stop system, which it's not going to use it because our vehicle is currently heating or cooling. So we could toggle the system off by pushing the button here if we wanted to. And as you can see there, start-stop is off. So very, very straightforward to do that. Moving down, we've got our trip information, so 2 individual counters. We can just press and hold the OK button on the steering wheel if we wanted to be able to reset the counters that way. Moving down, we've got our off-road status. We've got our current audio that we're listening to. Messages, if there was any sort of messages, updates, and things like that for the vehicle. And then we've also got our setup. So we just hit OK. And then as you can see there, we can also adjust what's going on with individual parts. So it kind of highlights very, very lightly as we go. But so we're going to see there. So we've got upper left. So if we click on that, we can have it show our compass, our temperature, time, range to empty, and a few other things. So we can essentially make this not whatever we'd like to, but we've got the flexibility of at least giving ourselves some options to be able to customize this a little bit. So if you want to be able to show, hide certain things, you want slightly different options there, you do have that as available as an option. We can select what menus are showing up, what defaults are there. We can also cancel. So if we've done too much to it, we've got the flexibility of essentially like resetting it and bringing it back to a factory default instead. But it is really neat. Now, as we go back to a different view, so we go back to this multi-page view, it's the same idea. I did mention we can kind of scroll up and down to go between all of our different counters, all of these different options here. We can switch out here in order to go back to all of these different views. So we can kind of get to all of these different views and options and things like that in different ways. Now, one thing, if we had navigation going, so we could go there if we wanted to, or navigate to Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons. This is everything I found. Which do you want? Tim Hortons, 742 Kingston Road, Pickering,
I
Ontario.
love the way that it says
this
Tim
one?
Hortons. Hilarious. Okay. And once we've got our route selected, just hopping back, we hit
At the
drive.
end of the road, turn
Boom.
right, Kingston Road.
As you can see there, we've got our route coming up right through the cluster screen as well, which is fantastic. I love it. And then once we hit end route there, end route yes, it's just going to get rid of that map instead. So it's really, well, our directions I should say, but it's really nice that we've got that available as an option. So that was a look at the steering wheel and the cluster inside of the Jeep Compass. What did you think? Really, really straightforward. I love all of the different features and options that are available. But if you ran into any problems, you have any questions, drop down in the comment section and let me know. More than willing to talk you through issues that you may be having. But if you found this video useful, thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you think somebody might get some use out of this video, feel free to share it to your social networks too. And until I see you next time, take care.